Hey everybody, welcome, and I'm sorry we're a little late. We have been extremely busy. Well, I should say Patrick has been. He's been, I don't know if you've noticed, if you've gone on the website and checked out the online classes, but Patrick's retooled and repackaged some of them, so you should check that out. It doesn't affect anybody that's a yearly subscriber now. I just wanted to mention that, but we realize that it's just for anybody that hasn't checked it out on Upholstery on Broadway, is where you go to check the online classes out to see what he's done. Facebook, we have it posted on Facebook too, but we've realized how huge the library that we have now, and we're really excited because I just want to right off the bat tell you that Jimmy's French settee class is up, and Patrick's got it in 5 phases because there's so much content. I guess he didn't want to overwhelm you guys with all the information.
Well, that's what you said. That was your advice, you know.
Right.
I thought it made sense.
I think it did. And
it's such a big project that pretty much, I'd say that class features everything you need to know about upholstery.
Well,
almost everything.
In a traditional sense, and actually a traditional upholstery. I mean, that really isn't a modern thing. Although if you want to check out a modern piece of furniture, we have an A to Z and a free on YouTube. Is that been posted as we go along, Patrick? The A to Z on the club chair?
Yep.
Okay. As we move along on that, it's really slow though, so I apologize for that. The customer gave me permission. It's a customer's chair too. Gave me permission to use that chair on the YouTube. But she came in the other day and said, "Where's my chair?" So we got to get moving on that to finish that, Patrick.
I've been so busy with this. Now we can get to that.
Yeah, we need to do that. And I told you about the bundles at Jimmy's class. So the other thing too is subscriptions. So if you like us and you haven't subscribed, please do so. Because I think we're near 17,000. I don't know at last check, Patrick.
Yeah, we're getting close.
But you know that's a big goal for us, 17,000, and then on our way to 20, which is really good, I think, at least for what we do. You know, I don't think that we're throwing this out expecting everybody in the population to be interested in this. You know, like some of the YouTube channels that we see out there that just are sensational and everybody's subscribing to, but only spending like a minute or whatever just checking out a video that comes up with us, because I think we're providing really good content, and I'm really giving it my all. Patrick's giving it all, and Michaela's giving it all for editing purposes and things like that, and presentation. I think we have a really good product, and when we have a 4.5 retention rate, that tells us that we're doing something right, and we appreciate you subscribing. Please subscribe, bottom line.
Thank you, Kevin Sims, with a super chat here, $5 super chat.
Oh, thanks.
And that's one thing I want to mention too. We try not to, get sponsored by anybody, and
we've been asked how many times.
Dollar Shave Club. We're not sponsored.
We've
by
been
Dollar
asked. I'm
Shave
not going to
Club.
show you this. I'm not going to show you what the bottle is on this, but we've been asked for product placement too, Patrick. All kinds of product placement. We won't show the product on this one because we get solicited all the time. And I'm glad Patrick and Michaela are my front people, because I probably would fall for everything that.
I'm fans of other channels that I really like that do the same thing. If anybody donates anything to us, it all goes towards this, getting it set up, creating new classes. We're trying not to be sponsored by anybody, so that's what we kind of.
No, I think once you're sponsored by people, you lose your focus. You really do. Our focus is to teach people upholstery through the internet, on the online classes especially. Right. But the YouTube, I was talking to a customer today about somebody that we heard. I mentioned this before, but I think it's really worth mentioning. And, we started the YouTube channels. Patrick was younger, and all the kids were on YouTube. And YouTube was a different product back then. I don't know if Patrick will agree with this. I think it started as something goofy. So it's for kids on skateboards, right? Now, I love skateboards, Patrick. Now, I don't know if you know, but Patrick was a skateboarder. But he did a couple of videos. Didn't you do a couple of videos, Patrick, with the skateboard? And you on the skateboard?
I forget. But
he was actually pretty good.
I know what you're saying. You're right about this. Gotten a lot. Between you, a lot of car guys, a lot of workout, a lot of information.
It's turned serious somewhat. It's turned to a really good medium to teach, and I didn't think it was going to be like that in the beginning. And I'll tell you when it turned for me. Early on, I think it was the second and third year in on our 10 years. We've been doing this for 10 years, Patrick.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
2011, officially. That's what we should do, a video celebrating 10 years.
We should, but I think it was the second year. We were doing some videos where, I'd have cushions piled up and I'd pull a string and they'd all fall on me. And I'd do something corny. I'd fallen and I can't get up, that stuff,
Hi, Claire, Daphne.
Hi, guys.
Randy,
but where it turned was when we got a call, we got an email from somebody out in the Midwest somewhere. It was a single mother, a stay-at-home mom, young children must have been, and she told me that on what she was getting from the YouTube, even at that point, that she was actually making a little bit of money to support her family. It was supplemental money, but I said to Patrick, you know what? I think we should get a little bit more serious with these. If people are relying on us, and it's turned into the online classes, which help support our efforts, which is really, and this thing that I didn't even know that we had, what's it called, Patrick?
What?
On the donation that you could do on that.
That's a super chat.
Super chat, I don't even know what that is, but, anything you could do. And also, our supplies, we have that listed, our supplies online, and you could check those out at Upholstery on Broadway. All those ways that you could support us. I did want to mention the Facebook. Is free. You guys get on Facebook. I want to thank our Facebook people for helping out.
Really cool one from Lucas today before the show.
Yeah, you talk about real professionalism. I have seen some really good work coming out on the Facebook, Patrick.
Yeah.
So I think I could go on now to the. I am going to say Patrick's been so busy that this segment he didn't have a chance to put my YouTubes in order and then show certain clips up there.
So I want to thank Janine. She really left a lot of cool stuff on there. A lot of good comments. And
so I guess I had to be the visual person here as well as the speaker.
But I do have Lucas's one that's I want to make sure everybody sees that. So
that's coming up though, right after
yes.
YouTube. So let's get to the YouTube. We got a lot of YouTube, you guys. So we're really happy about that. I think it has something to do with the cold weather coming in, Patrick. Maybe.
Well,
because we noticed
people are back inside.
People are back inside. Well, didn't we notice over the summer there was a kind of a lull in the action, wasn't there?
Except for Virginia. I hope she's out enjoying the summer there in Australia.
I hope so. I hope so. So, Randy, and thank you, Randy, for being such a great supporter.
Too, yeah, he posts a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, Randy says on the French settee, lesson 6. So that's up. That's up, Patrick?
Yeah, so I want me to mention that now before you get into that?
Yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, I think you mentioned it, 5 phases. But it doesn't mean there's going to be 5 classes. This one had more. We kind of tried separating it, and I asked you, I said the first phase was kind of, I think it was webbing and, what was after webbing in Jimmy's class?
Well, we got an 8-way, he's commenting.
Webbing and springtime.
Yeah, he's commenting on the 8-way tie, part 3.
That's the first 6 classes are already up, so you guys can enjoy those all at once or take your time.
It's kind of exciting to see this, I remember when I was learning and I did my first chair, I was so proud of that first chair. I took it around and showed people, hey, I did this,
I'll tell you what, 23 classes is a lot of classes.
Well, it's a lot of editing, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot of classes. So.
I've had Patrick gets the credit and Michaela gets the credit for that editing. I don't know how they can stand looking at Jimmy and I all those hours. You're probably sick of us. I don't blame you. So Randy says upholstery is an art craft, and he gives it a thumb up. So I have had 3 in-person upholstery instructors, and you via video is 4, and not one of your spring ties the same. And I think I mentioned this when I was teaching Jimmy, Patrick.
Right.
All of you have some elements in common, but still very different. I am thinking my technique is a blend of all 4. Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
So Randy's taken. See, this is the thing about upholstery, you guys, and I think that for all you like Daphne and people who are just starting out upholstery, I think what you're finding is that you can express yourself. It's not like, I remember, in my school we had vocation classes at that point, but then they turned everything liberal arts, and after I went through the middle school, they got rid of it, and they went liberal arts on everything, which I think is a shame. But anyhow, I remember the wood teacher, man. It was his way or the highway. It was, here you cut this wood this way, this way, this way, this way, and if you didn't do it, you were gone, right? Wood shop teachers were a little different than the regular teachers, I can tell you that. But in upholstery, it's really, you can, and this is proof, Randy touched on something interesting. This is proof that you can take your own artistic level of whatever or style and apply it to your upholstery. And people laugh. I can actually recognize people that I've worked with years ago. I can recognize their work. I could see there's little distinctive things that they did in the work. And I told you about this one thing that love seat that I recognize as my mentors. You guys know that story. So I think it's great that way. I think it's a great trade that way. Art, craft, he's right. So let's go on to the next one. Got a few of them. And let's read Randy again. The French settee. Unrelated to upholstery, is that an old whiskey barrel I see in the background?
I think he's talking about the one you used to hold the fabric scraps in.
You know what? I think it is an old whiskey bottle.
Is it?
Barrel.
Wow.
Yeah, it's one of those old. I put my gimp in that, Randy.
That's what it was for.
I put all my gimp in there, all the braiding and everything. And so when customers come in, it's kind of neat having that filled up with instead of booze, we have it filled up with gimp. So did you see? And then. Did you and Jimmy get a wee bit thirsty after class? Yeah, we're drinking the gimp. Randy also says in the French settee. Boy, Randy must have liked that French settee. Because,
if you're commenting on class 6, I can't believe he's that far already.
Well, don't forget, he's been upholstering for a while.
But it's a lot of people just watching. I wonder if he actually has a French settee that he's working on at the same time.
Well, if Randy it depends on where you are. If you're watching these, I bet you could watch just the first one over and over again to pick up the techniques. But it depends on where your skill level is, I guess.
But you can apply, like you said, you can apply this to more than just a French settee.
Oh, absolutely.
You don't have to have just Jimmy's French settee to be doing it.
Yeah, we label it a French settee. You don't have to have a French settee.
Right, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
All kinds of things.
I had people probably just watching it for fun. They might not even be working on anything at the same time, which is cool too.
We had one customer, one client on the online classes commented they were watching Jimmy and I, and their teenage son came behind them and said, "I don't know, Mom, I'm a little worried about you watching these two old guys." To a teenager, that is boring, I would say, right, Patrick?
Believe me, I get worried when I'm editing these things.
Sometimes Jimmy forgets on the online classes. He thinks he's in a... Is he on, by the way?
No, but he left a good comment on one of the YouTube.
Okay. Jimmy sometimes forgets on the online classes. He gets... See, the question
is... he's being filmed.
Oh, yeah. So Randy says on this one, so I was about ready to ask you about stapling the spring twine, but you answered the question. I have a settee that has really thin rails that are all dried out and split from age. I'm afraid they would not hold a tack. You know what? Randy has a good point, you guys. Sometimes I only do the 4-way tie with the 12-ounce tacks. Sometimes if you're a really old piece, it's okay to use your pneumatic staple gun. Just make sure you use the 1/2-inch staple. So that's a way that's problem solving. If you guys haven't figured it out yet by now, that upholsterers have to be good problem solvers. As a matter of fact, that's the description the government used for the job. Every single job ever done in this country, at least in this country, has a description to it for people who are looking, young people who want to go into a trade. They have a description, and the first thing they say about upholstery is must be able to problem solve. So it was like Daphne's question about she had an uneven webbing because of an added rail that somebody put in, and I answered that question. But don't be afraid to experiment, you guys. You have a great technique called pin tacking, which is you're not committed to a staple or a tack with the pin tack, right? So just experiment. You could be doing that all afternoon instead of spending it on $100 a yard fabric. If you're worried, just use muslin and experiment. You could experiment with stuffing. Although we have a good Facebook question from Diana that I want to get to in a little while that talks about supply, what to use where, and that's a really good question. So I'll get to that in a little while. It opens up a lot. So I'm afraid they would not hold a tack, he said about the reels, and he's right. Use the staples, try to go sensitive. As a matter of fact, in the old days when we were hammering with the nails, we would actually have to hold, if you were working on a wing and you were just, hacking away with the hammer, the boss would come right over and you wouldn't do that again. he wants to see your hand behind the wing when you're hammering, or underneath, even when you're hammering a rail. Like if you're in the center of the rail, you better put a wooden mallet under the center rail, or would be the best thing. Or sacrifice your hand on the other side of the rail to get some support behind it. Otherwise, you're going to break that beautiful piece. And then your profit, as soon as you break a piece of furniture, your profit's gone. Keep that in mind. So, Rigo, how to run an upholstery shop. This is a good question, you guys. How much do you pay your subs? So somebody does a cushion for you if you're a professional upholsterer. First of all, you let them, I give my subs the opportunity to price things out themselves. And if I'm happy with that, I'll use them. If I'm not, this has happened before. Somebody, it's funny. The subs, I had a stitcher come in and I used her, and she was expensive. She was probably 25% more over my regular person who does cushions. And I have to tell you, it wasn't as good, and it took longer, but she really thought of herself as really somebody that deserved that much money. She really, her skill wasn't there yet in order to deserve that money. So that's another factor, is how long somebody's been doing something, how do they have overhead? I mean, you really can't get a sub that has another shop, because they can't give you a better price. And you are looking for it. Let's face it, you can't. Let's say somebody wants to do a sofa. I don't usually do this, but a sofa for you, it's got to be at least 50% less than what you get paid. That's the answer. But that's not something that I do. I only do piece here and there, like cushions and things like that. But on the cushions, you can't be too generous in giving money out on cushions. So I hope that answers that question. It's
I
kind of
say real quick, Pam, I just got your submission. I'm printing it out right now.
Let's say.
Pam posted to the phone.
By the way, before I go on, is there any questions, comments that should want me to read Pam's now? Or?
No, wait till the Facebook stuff. I'll catch up here. Randy says he enjoys watching it. Nothing good on TV last night, so he enjoys watching you.
And Jimmy?
Daphne agrees. And Jimmy.
Jimmy's a good guy.
I'm glad you guys agree. I'm glad you guys
Thank you.
chose us over the Voice or something.
But no, every Thursday night, Patrick, that's the show, right? The Voice? Is that the show? Is that the big show now? I watch the reruns of, I don't particularly like The Voice. I like America's Got Talent and the English one with that Simon guy. I like watching the goofy, not the goofy ones, but the sentimental videos. So I like to hear somebody's story. It's usually a tough story, and then they get on there and sing, and they get the golden buzzer. That's what I like to see. But when I was in the 90s, the thing about Thursday night was Seinfeld, and there was something else on. Everybody looked forward to that, and everybody talked about it the next day, what the episode was like. I don't think there's any TV like that now, is there?
I think so, yeah.
But anyhow. How much do you pay a sub? I answered that. Denise Shepard, she says on the Upholstery Show Live, I missed the live chat. I have a Victorian chair with the valley on the apron on the front seat rail. The wave is 2 to 4 inches at center. When stapling the webbing back to front, it does not lay level. Is that correct? Or should I staple the webbing to make it level, which means stapling the webbing to the inside apron, putting the stress on the webbing, putting more stress on the webbing. I think I know what she means. You want to avoid stapling into, if she's referring to an apron as that decorative piece like on a Victorian chair, you certainly don't want it to be stapled into that, because that doesn't hold the support. And I think this is tied into Daphne's question about, maybe not, but always make sure that you're into something strong. And when you're using your webbing stretcher, you want to be, I think what she's saying, so you can't take normally you want to go from the front rail to the back rail without having a picture. This is tough, but what she's describing, I think, is a Victorian chair with a little decorative front, and she has to run the webbing from the front to the back, at least in the center, instead of the back to the front, because you can't get the webbing over that apron and stretch. I think this is what she's talking about. So you can break the rules once in a while. That's a case where you have to break the rule and go from the front to the back. I guess that answers that. So that's another problem. It's all about problem solving. And Daphne's problem was that she was a little inconsistent with the webbing, but then she made it up as she's putting her stuffing on. It's not going to make a difference. She's going to, all the padding and everything is going to even out, and she's going to end up with a beautiful crown. Trust me. So what's a beautiful crown on an upholstered seat is when you look at it, you split it in the middle and it's even on both sides. It has an even crown on both sides. What determines the height of the crown? The height of the springs. And Daphne just ordered some number 1 springs. You might get that tomorrow, by the way. Daphne, I'll let you know. She ordered some number one springs, which are 6-rung springs. Don't ask me why they do that. And that will determine the size of your crown. And she must be working on a very delicate small piece of furniture for a number 1 spring. If it is an upholstered seat, I'm sorry if I'm talking fast. If it's not an upholstered seat, she's also wanted to use the number 1 springs, and a cushion will go on top. But those springs will be made without a crown. Does that make sense? I don't know why I get into that. But Janine, the French settee, Patrick, I think we got a popular class here. People are commenting on this. There's a lot of comments. Yeah. Some interesting knots there, Jimmy. Or maybe it's just because you're left-handed. And you know what's interesting is I don't chastise people for doing their own thing. And I think what Jimmy was doing, do you remember, Patrick? I don't know if you remember this. It's a little while ago now.
For us, at least. We filmed
but
it.
Jimmy was making some knots that were different. But a lot of times that ruby twine that we use, you guys, not the nylon twine. Try to nylon not tufting twine. We can use nylon tufting twine, it's fine. But on your springs, you don't want to use the nylon spring twine because it slips. But when you're using the jute, believe it or not, most knots are fine. It's just Jimmy was doing something his own signature, like Randy, right? Randy's used a combination of 4 upholstery techniques, Patrick. 4.
Oh, very cool.
And he's made his own, so that's 5. Wow. Isn't that cool?
That is, yeah.
I like that. I like that. So Jimmy, he's a good sport. He really is.
I just want to read, did you get to the one Daphne posted? It was on the website. You commented from the website. Somebody, I think Michaela forwarded me the email to my email.
I think that's one that I want to, is that the one?
She's commenting now. She's saying she's replacing strap springs on an upholstered seat. She says she'll call you tomorrow.
Okay.
Concerned about those. But do you want me to read her?
Yeah, go ahead.
On the site?
Go ahead.
Has to do with the springs. For a project with a large number of springs like this settee, would it be okay to do a simple crossover? Over and under spring, then over twine, then back under the spring with no knot. In another video, Kevin said as long as you were using jute twine, then you didn't need to knot each time, but I wonder if that only applies to chairs. In this video, it looks like Jimmy is knotting each time.
I'm going to let you in on a little secret, you guys. When I was taught out of spring twine, there wasn't one of my mentors who tied knots in the springs. They always did a crossover. But crossovers need a little practice because you can't lose the tension as you're doing, because they're not knotted. You may lose the tension. You could do a whole row and then lose the tension somewhere, and then have to go back and do it again if you're not practiced at it. It takes a little practice to do it. So the knotting is a teaching technique, and the way I actually developed that myself for beginners. So if you've tied all your springs, people are going, oh, that SOB guy, he told me I had to knot every single time. Well, it's a teaching technique. So if somebody has a row of 5 springs that they're tying, a big sofa, let's say, and they're coming forward this way, and I have them tie. At any point, they can relax and look at their work, then pull the twine again to see if the spring's standing straight up. If you're doing the crossover, you get your whole row done, and then it slips somewhere, and you have to go back again. So it was a teaching technique, the knots. So if you get to a point where you think that you've mastered that, the tension is the big thing. As you guys know, if you're tying springs, the tension is a huge part of it. If you think you've mastered that, you can go ahead and do the crossover, and you're going to say, oh, you can really move on those. You can really go fast doing that. And then one of the good things about that too is you don't have a big bump on the spring. It's just a smaller amount of twine, so it's kind of nice that way. That's a little nuanced thing, but I hope that answers the question. Patricia says you are a true artist. She must be talking about Jimmy. Well, no, it's a stuffing a cushion. It's funny, you guys. It's an art to stuff a cushion. To take a cushion out and to restuff a cushion. You can make a really good sewing job look bad by filling it wrong. So in that video, you guys should check this out if you haven't. And you guys are doing cushions, and none of your cushions, you've squared your cushion up, and then you fill your cushion and you're not happy with the cushion. Believe it or not, it could be the way you're stuffing the cushion. So that's the last thing you need to learn. And in that video, I show you how to throw you have to take your seams or your salvages down onto the boxing. You have to stick your hand in there. You have to rotate the cushion back and forth. You have to work the filling into the corners. And then I show you how to do the dacron. There's actually more to it than you think. So you should check that video out. We did that a few years ago too, Patrick, I think, that video. Because I recognized that shirt.
Yeah.
Didn't you call that my prisoner's shirt?
There seems to be a theme of wearing the same things over and over.
I showed up to one of Patrick's, I don't know if he remembers this, one of his school events in a shirt. I think it was this shirt, and all the kids were in the corner, and Patrick was laughing. Didn't you say that it looked like I was escaped from a prison or something?
I remember that, yeah.
Oh, kids, they see everything. Daphne has a nice comment in here. How to upholster a dining room chair, part 3, padding and upholstery seat. I think Daphne is really looking at some of the, I think she's into a lot of these videos on the YouTube, Patrick.
Yeah.
As well as
comment, she's doing the carved mahogany right now.
Oh, great. Hi, I'm so glad I found this video because I am working with the 1920s era chair that is similar to this one, except it has 9 springs and horsehair. The original fabric, woven tapestry style, was folded, pin-tacked, and finished with French nails in the seat arms and in the inside back. My replacement fabric is also fairly heavy and woven. Should I try to stretch and then fold it instead of trimming it? I'm probably going to finish it with the gimp rather than the French nails. Stretch it and then fold it instead of trimming it. So it all depends, you guys. I've done, I don't know if this was, yeah, I think this was it. So I've done videos where I show you that if there's not a lot of padding involved, so if there's not a lot of padding, not a lot of stretching on the fabric, and if the fabric allows, and it takes some coordination for sure, but you can fold the fabric and pin tack it. Like, let's say you're doing an inside back, or let's say an outside back, and you could see the wood frame. It's wood framed, and you can see where it has to be tacked. Instead of just tacking it and then trimming it later, fold the top about 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch down, pin tack it along the edge of the wood. Bring it down, but on the bottom you have to kind of fold it and stretch it a little bit. You just can't fold it and pin tack. You need to fold it, stretch it a little bit. So it's a little tricky. Then go to one side, never with more than 3/4 inch of fabric, I would say, depending on the heaviness of the fabric. But the advantage to this is you don't have to trim it. It leaves a cleaner edge for your gimp with double piping. It's really kind of cool if you can do it. But you can't do it over a crown seat, obviously. You can't do it. You need a lot of stretching, and you're not going to be able to fold and stretch. Trust me on that one. So you have to be very selective on where that gets done. But where you can do it, you should do it. Like on some settees, not Jimmy's, you have those panels, even on the inside, that aren't upholstered very heavy. You can do it on those. Daphne's got. She's going to be a real student, Patrick, and Janine. I mean, I think a lot of our people are what I would call good students, and I think they're going to be doing this for a long time. Actually, I was talking, I hope Janine doesn't mind. Is Janine on, Patrick?
Probably not, because she's in a different time.
Well, I think Janine and I were talking, her profession, she does something else, and I was telling her that for 4 years I taught people with disabilities upholstery, and I had a great time doing that, and it was one of the best things I've ever done in upholstery. But I think Janine, she's definitely thinking of teaching. I think she might be on that road to teach, as a therapy. I think it's wonderful, and it's not I'm not the first person to participate in that for sure, or even think about therapy. Vocation as a therapy. They've had that idea for a long time, but I've seen it work. I think it's wonderful. So if anybody out there, if you know anybody that, if you're developing a skill, I would encourage you to think about teaching other people. We have the kits to do that, right, Patrick, on the online?
Yep,
I didn't mean to use that as a plug. Sorry, I really didn't. But you don't even need the kits. You can do it on your own. You will see once you get to a certain point, and I know Janine is there, and I think Daphne is approaching that point people like her and of course Randy, think about even in an adult.
Too hard to even list everybody at this point.
I know.
Getting to that
I
point
know.
now.
But I know we have
All
people.
of our followers are getting to that point. That'd be better than you.
That's funny you should say that, but anyhow.
Watch out. Other YouTube channels are going to start popping up here now.
Well, we don't mind competition, Patrick.
Of course, support though, if they do.
Actually,
that'd be great. We encourage that, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this in How to Run an Upholstery Shop. You shouldn't be afraid of competition, but you should be aware of your own business and how to get more business. And one way of doing it is, if you have 10 upholsterers in a town, you're the only one teaching. You have the authority of a teacher, and you're teaching, and people like you teaching, or they see the light on in your shop, and there's people in there. That activity, I'm telling you, goes a long way to getting you clients, and to establishing you as you're separate. You're cut above everybody else in that way. People do respond to that. So somebody says here they love your sense of humor. They must be talking about you, Patrick. I don't know what they're referring to.
Maybe they saw the cushions falling.
Oh, so the same person, it's VG says you should write a book about tricks of upholstery.
Which we kind of did.
I just saw a book. I just saw a book advertised on Facebook. Funny things my drill instructor said. Some of the things we can't say, but drill instructors can be very colorful in their language. But let's put it that way.
I mean, you do have a book out. Check that out.
We do have a book. It's a very serious book. It's the very basics of upholstery. You guys should check that out. It's online, right, Patrick?
Yeah, Randy got it. He can say how good. He can mention how he enjoyed it.
And then how to upholster, the measuring and applying the fabric. VG says, this is my hardest part, thanks. So it is. When I was teaching upholstery, speaking of that, it was the most anxiety-filled thing when somebody had to cut into their expensive fabric. They were really worried about making mistakes. That and cutting. That was kind of the big things. VG says, my problem is the measuring. I'll keep practicing though. What you need to realize, you guys, when you're measuring, other than cushions, other than your final cut on your cushion, which has to be, this in upholstery, we only get down to 1/2-inch seams, which is another really, if you guys out there, I'm not sure if Daphne or Janine or Randy or even has ever done tailoring or dressmaking or anything like that, you're dealing with smaller seams. And I can't tell you how small the seams get, but you can imagine, you're not dealing 1/2-inch seams when you're dealing dresses and fine suits. So 1/2-inch seams is the only thing we do, at least me. I don't know about you guys. So only on a cushion, even the first cut on a cushion, you don't have to be too concerned that you're going to make a mistake, because you're over 2 inches oversized on a cushion. That's how I teach people. And on the rest of it, on the body, you're 3 inches oversized. So if you make a mistake and you're 1 inch off, you're still going to be okay, or 1 inch bigger. Both present a little bit more of a problem, but it's not like you're going to have to cut it over again. You'll be able to deal with it. So that's another thing I like about upholstery. You don't have to be perfect in that. A lot of times you don't have to be perfect. Like I said though, I have tutorials on how to cut cushions, and I give you some really good tips on that. As a matter of fact, one of our online classes, Patrick, I think has Bernice cutting a cushion.
It might have been
doing a cushion
for the arts and crafts chair, or the cover
for the arts and crafts chair.
Was it?
And she's a professional, so you guys should check that out if you want to really see how to do a cushion really the right way.
I wanted to play with Sylvia. She's trying to talk. Speaking of, because that reminded me of Bernice. Trying to talk my husband into the slipcover class. I reminded him it would be a good return on his investment. Any advice to help persuade him to take Bernice's class?
So, does he have I don't know if he has sewing experience, does he?
Maybe she can get into that more, what his experience is and stuff like that. But you can say how good Bernice is at teaching, that's for sure.
So she's a good teacher, and she has a technique because she's a mathematician. She's actually a very good bridge player. I don't know if you guys know that about her, but she's also teaches bridge. So she's teaching bridge, she's good. But there's a lot of math, I believe, in that. I've never played bridge, but she is a mathematician, so she's applied herself to the slipcover, and she loves slipcovering, but she shows a technique that saves a ton of time if you're going to get into that. And yeah, of course, I think any learning is a return on an investment. I mean, his first job, if he learns how to do a slipcover, his first job, he's going to get more than this. It's only $49, right, Patrick, for that class?
Yeah.
The single classes. We sold a couple of the single classes lately, but I'm not sure if it was her class or not. The thing about these classes, you guys, you know that time.
I think she's sorry. I think she's talking about herself, not her husband.
She's trying to convince him
to get it for her, maybe.
I think
but how do we know Sylvia has it? Yeah, so she says she has experience. We know
yeah, come on. I definitely. I don't know how to tell you any more than this, but Bernice is one of the best. She's one of the. I was about to say that what she teaches is timeless, as well as what I teach is timeless. So usually, if you can get a 10-year-old video, even though it's a little, goofy, like the first ones we started out like that, you're going to learn something in that that's relevant to whatever you're doing today, because it's a timeless. That's what I love about my job. I don't have to be sitting down, learning new techniques every day. Like in computers and software and hardware. I couldn't do that. I just, you get a basic knowledge and apply it to almost anything in upholstery. With this slipcover, I think just her showing you, and she's very generous. I think, we all are generous here with our teaching. She just gives you everything. She's not, what I noticed, Patrick, at some of these things on YouTube that come up, you're interested in something, usually it's health related, unfortunately, about they're going on, they never tell you. They never get to the point. It goes on and on and on. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Kinda, yeah.
They don't give you the secret. They don't give you that little tips that like somebody said in here about the tips. You have to watch it for hours and hours. Bernice just in that video, she just gives it all, right?
Yeah,
she gives it her all.
She does. I would mention that you can get I put the Bernice bundle. So that's one of the.
Yeah.
You pay for the two classes that are already there, and any other Bernice classes. Up to 5 more, I think, that we released for Bernice. So if she gets that, she'll have everything, all Bernice stuff.
Now, how much is that, though, Patrick?
Like $120.
That's a better value, isn't it?
Yeah, well,
just buying one class.
Together, they're $100. But it also includes up to 5 more released for Bernice.
Remember, she's got to convince him. Do you think you're convincing him, or you don't have to
convince him? I'm trying here.
Well, this is always the case. It brings up an interesting thing when you're dealing with customers, coming in and talking to them. There's usually somebody that's behind, that they have to report to and come back and, back and forth. So there's 2 people. Karen, she says the French settee. Wow, Patrick, we did get a lot of activity, huh?
Yeah.
I've seen a technique in a book. I can check which one if needed for applying webbing to curves, such as the arms or maybe backs, not in the seat where it's necessarily to hold distributed weight on springs from people, in which instead of weaving over, they applied some webs over and others under to enhance or better follow the curve. Again, that's problem solving, you guys, depending on the piece that you have. If you have a piece, you can break the rules. I have no problem. I remember one time in class, somebody had missed a weave, but it wasn't in a case of a curve or anything because it was a flat piece of furniture. So they had their their verticals and their horizontal. They did 2 the same, and it was a big job. And I came over, and they were all despondent. I said, "What are you despondent about? This is your signature." In 100 years, an archaeologist will say, "This is an original." Fill in the name. Let's call it Mary. This is an original Mary. I recognize it because she always put 2 webbings the same. So really, you don't have to be perfect. You really don't have to be perfect. And I left it up to her if she wanted to undo all the tacks and ruin the wood, which was not necessary at all. It really wasn't. So she kept it. And don't worry about it. But you need to, Karen, you need to look at this and then make your decision. Try to fathom it out, reason it out, and yes, I've seen webbing put on like that with the curves. I'm just closing my eyes to visualize it because I don't have a picture here. But, problem solve. It seems, as she goes on, it seems like it could be less strong and might allow some more movement over time, but it also seems it clearly defines the curve for any layers applied above. So she's talking about something different there. That's more Daphne's situation, which you don't really necessarily want at the top of the seat to be any type of curve except if it's a crown as a crown. So try to avoid that. I think she's overthinking, and sometimes you overthink things, you guys, too. So don't do that. Randy says, On backs with curves, I've used sagless webbing, burlap. It has a very tight weave and comes in on rolls 30 inches wide. It will on backs and inside arms, any place where you need some support but still needs some give. As I learned early in this, here's what he says. Randy's a wise man. He says, as I learned early on, there is no one right way to accomplish a task. And he has right way in parentheses. Is he on, Patrick?
Yes.
I think he is, right? Thanks, Randy. Randy's he vouched for me about the problem solving. Every day there's problem solving. I'm trying to think today, what did I have? Oh, you know what happened today, you guys? I was delivering a beautiful, I don't know if we have a picture of that. I don't think we do.
I told you to take a picture of this. Yeah.
Well, it wasn't ready to be set up in the house, Patrick. But I didn't tell you what happened. We got to the house. We had a hard time getting that sofa out. It was a very unusual
Didn't need a crane, though, I hope.
No, coming out the front door, and I said, when we come back, I had a plan for when we came back, but it didn't work, so I had to talk about problem solving. I didn't want to, the customer was helping me too, so that didn't help. But I had to take the front door off in order to get the sofa in, and it was a pain because there were 4 screws on each hinge. The pins didn't come out, so I had to unscrew the hinges. You guys know how hard that is. And then get the sofa in and then put the door back. So talk about problem solving. If I didn't do that, I know I would have ruined that sofa. I would have broke a leg or something, and that would have been catastrophe. So I spent the time to take the door off, and the customer's happy. So problem solving, right, guys? Wow, we have a lot, you guys. We have a lot. This is the most I've seen, Patrick.
I knew it was going to blow up after the CC was posted.
No, I've never
Very
seen so many YouTube. Is there any questions or comments, or people just listening to my...
Oh, they're commenting.
Yeah.
And Sylvia says thanks.
Okay.
M. Ward says it's tough to go from a 1/4 seam as a quilter to a 1/2 inch.
What is it?
1/4 to 1/2 inch seam. It's tough to go from that to that.
Yeah.
So I'm using some of my grandfather's tools, and talk about timeless. I have to replace my work computer every few years. I know that is.
Yeah.
Especially with the software we use, it can get tough.
So those are the comments. Good. Debbie says, the French settee again, I wish you could show step-by-step process. What do they mean by that, Patrick? Because isn't it...
Well, no, all of our supporters did a good job of following up with them.
Tell me what you mean, but what she...
Read the follow-up comments that people left.
James says, I believe in this lesson is a step-by-step process.
Yes.
Then Steven says, if you watch all the older videos, it's all there. These previews are sort of advertisement for the online classes.
Yeah,
oh, she was looking at a
it.
preview.
Yes.
Oh, of course.
Steven gets it.
I didn't know that. Janine says, hi, Debbie. Oh, you guys, thank you for answering, Debbie. It just shows that people care about what we're doing.
Right.
Let me tell you, this helps us. I don't always have the time, you guys, I'm sorry, to respond to everything, and we haven't been able to do that in a while, have we, Patrick?
No, but we answer everything on here.
But,
That's
the
what
YouTube, we
with.
don't. If you guys feel free, anybody wants to take the mission, like Janine or Steven or Jimmy does anyhow. He does the Facebook. Please do, because you guys know me, you know the information, you could present it, because a lot of these comments on YouTube go unanswered, Patrick.
Right. Well, I don't think they go unanswered. We always answer it here.
Yeah, but I mean, if somebody's not watching this, they don't get the answer.
Exactly.
So if you guys want to do this is fabulous when you see all these replies. And then Randy follows, hold on.
That'd be a different
Janine
one.
says, hi Debbie. Broadway Upholstery School has step-by-step online classes for this and many other projects. You could buy one class or become a yearly subscriber like me. This software will show you many basics of upholstery, plus extra tips and techniques. The prices are very reasonable, and these guys are the best on YouTube. I can't recommend them highly enough.
Yeah, see, there we go.
Janine, I can't thank Janine enough.
They know more than us than we do.
Well, that's true. I think in some ways, Badger, because we don't want to blow our own horn. It's kind of hard to do that anyhow, and you might come off.
And I hope those previews aren't meant to be annoying or like spam ads. They're just meant for people who aren't students yet to see what we're offering.
Sure.
So they're not supposed to be. Stephen is right in the sense they are an advertisement, but it's more for people to kind of preview what it is before they buy something. I think it's better than going in blind to what it is,
And what Janine, Randy follows up to Janine's comment, which is kind of cool, because when you have a string like this, it's kind of nice. I can't remember the last string like this that that I thought was kind of cool was when I was pretending tongue-in-cheek to be a cat expert. Do you remember that, Patrick?
Yeah, the big controversy on
And
that.
I was at a wing chair talking about cats. Yeah, like I know anything about cats, right? But it was like tongue-in-cheek, right, Patrick?
Yeah.
Oh, how to select fabric for your favorite cat. And, we went through a little process there. And somebody, the first comment they said, "This guy knows nothing about cats." And then somebody else said, Patrick, right?
Well,
They said, "Of course he doesn't. He's an upholsterer."
Yeah, we're not trying to figure it out. We're just trying to repair whatever. Yeah.
And anyhow, we like to have fun too. Janine, well said, Randy says, if someone was only going to purchase one class, this should be the class.
Yeah.
By the looks of it, you will cover 99% of what you need to know to do any other project in this class.
Yep.
Yeah.
The longest one yet.
Patricia Robinson says about how to upholster a dining room chair. Part 4, talking it out is great. Makes one understand why you do each step. So I think when I looked at the camera at this point, we had gotten a comment from somebody that says, "You talk too much."
Well, I agree with that.
but I can't just sit here. Yeah, but what am I going to do? Sit here for an hour and not talk?
Obviously.
But I looked at the camera and I said that, and I said maybe I shouldn't, But then I started thinking, why don't they just turn them on the mute?
Yeah.
Right, Patrick?
Everybody has their own whatever they like,
I think that this goes back to my teaching. If you really want to know, when you're teaching people with major disabilities, with head injuries and schizophrenia and bipolar disorder and sometimes dual diagnosings, you really do have to talk a lot. It's like, and then explain things. So I think if you really want to know, Janine, why, and I think Janine and I have discussed this off camera, but I don't mind saying it, why I might have a good product is the fact that I had to learn how to break down my steps. This was hard to do when you're a very mechanical upholsterer who's been doing things for 40 years. What I had to do is break down steps, sometimes one step into tenths. So 10 steps in one. Now, I don't have to do that on the online classes with Jimmy, but we are breaking it down, really, and Randy can probably attest to this more than anybody, being another upholsterer, because he probably just has to skim over a lot of stuff because he already knows it. But to teach it is a totally different thing. You have to really break it down, and depending on who you're teaching. So Janine, I would say that I'm going to encourage you when you're ready, and she is close to this, I think. When you go off and you teach, you're going to love the challenge of you're going to have all your different students from all walks of life, from all learning levels, and then to make matters a little bit more challenging, you're going to have all different pieces of furniture. You're not just teaching, you can if you want teach my Ottoman class, but that's boring. You're going to have a wing chair, you're going to have a side chair, you're going to have a French settee over here, and all the people who are different too, and it's really fun. I think you're going to love it. It's really fun. So Patricia says, also part 1, stripping and measuring. You didn't cut for the piping on the bias. Does that matter? Whoa, what a great question this is, you guys. Bias cutting is the most overrated thing in upholstery fabric. Now remember, there's a difference between upholstery fabric and dressmakers. I know that when they make a dress, right, Michaela? Michaela, do you know that they cut dresses on the bias? The fabric? You don't know?
No.
Well, when you want a dress to fall, you don't cut it straight, you cut it on the bias to fall down. I know that much, okay? But with upholstery fabric, not all of it. It depends on the pattern too, you guys. If you have a stripe and you want a good cross-section on a stripe on an upholstery fabric, cut it on the bias. You have to cut on the bias. But if you have a solid fabric, oftentimes, and depending on where the piping goes, the piping's going around the chair, it's fixed with staples. You don't have to worry about cutting on the bias. As a matter of fact, when you go up the roll, you get a longer piece. Sometimes on a sofa, that's important. I just had a sofa where I double welting that was 140 inches long. So I needed to make sure that I could go right up the roll. If I cut it on the bias, there's no way I would have been able to do it without piecing. Do you know what I mean? And I apologize for talking fast.
You are going fast. This is one of those the disclaimer at the end of the commercial.
But you can rerun this and listen to it. I'm doing it on purpose because I have to get it out. There's a lot of information. So,
Making me tired of listening to it.
well, she asked, this is a really good question, a loaded question, as they say, and I could go on a lot. I hope I answered it. It's a case by case, but you don't have to do bias cut, bottom line, on upholstery fabric all the time. Okay? Claire is from France,
I
Patrick.
think she's on.
Is
she is.
is
She
Claire?
was earlier.
What time is it in France, Patrick? Come on.
Don't ask me.
It's got to be an
Time to go to
odd
bed, maybe, or the time.
They gotta be at least
How many hours are they?
6 hours.
5.
5.
5 at least.
5 or 6.
I know England's 5 hours ahead.
But I think Claire's been a great. She's got she's a subscriber, Patrick, to the online classes.
Yep.
So hi, Claire. She says, can't wait to see this class. It is included in the yearly. Is it included in the yearly subscriptions?
Yes.
Which is already an amazing value. And the answer is
Yes.
great.
And Claire got her yearly subscription, I think it was a month ago, maybe, so she's part of the old, before we retooled it, so she'll be getting what's promised. I thought, going to that more, I thought ending on this settee class, we get to the point of 9 classes, can you believe that?
9 classes for what?
Just 9 total.
What do you mean 9
We've done
total?
9 classes.
You with individual pieces.
No, but listen, are you shocked how far 9 classes we've done now with everybody?
Yeah, but
between
how many hours is that?
Oh, no, 9 but lessons you're talking about.
Well, how many lessons?
Who even knows?
How many lessons do you think?
So the first 2 at 6 classes.
6.
And then after that, we kind of strayed away from that. 10, 14, 11. Bernice is a little bit shorter. Those are different kinds of classes.
So you're going to be at least 50? At least 50?
Yeah, they're an hour each.
At least 50 lessons,
Yeah.
which every lesson has many little tidbits in it, little tips.
So we just kept filming it, and I realized it's about time we kind of retool these and separate them.
Yeah.
So our library has got out of control.
Check out to see if there's any more comments or questions, Patrick. Because I know that the people on Facebook are probably just waiting for me to get to this. If you could just stick with me, you guys.
M. Ward says bias for curves, right? Is that what you were talking about, for curves?
No, bias cut for, sometimes you have to do a bias cut for a cushion. Because you're not fixing it. Anything fixed, you can go around a curve with almost any. You don't need a bias cut to go around a curve, because the trick there is you just cut your selvage to go around a curve if it's fixed, meaning stapled onto a chair. But on cushions, oftentimes the bias cut is better for sure, but not always. Not always do you have to, even on a cushion. Let's say you have a bench cushion for a sofa, and you only want one seam, and that's in the back where people a lot of times can't see it. I mean, the most awful job I see it, even by professional upholsterers, would be a velvet that has that's pieced all the way around the cushion like 3 or 4 times. And even though on a velvet, you have to be really careful on a velvet with seams, because on a velvet, you can make sure you get the same, going in the same direction, but velvet has the variances in velvet. So it could even look like, even though you paid attention to keeping the string going with the velvet, that you didn't do that. And that's why it's important, if you can, on upholstery fabric, that's why you never, this is what you guys are looking at me for the first time and say, what's the guy talking about? Why is he talking so much about this? But these classes that we teach Jimmy, we also show how to cut fabric. It's one of the things, right, Patrick? Mm-hmm. So you will hear me hammer away on some of the most important points. I'm hammering away, and Jimmy keeps, and it's not just Jimmy, it's any student, keeps making mistakes, and I'm correcting them, and I'm hammering away as to why you don't do certain things. One of them is, you start off with your good cuts when you're cutting, but you try to keep your fabric intact as much as possible with the ends. So you by the time you're done, you have a very jigsaw-y looking piece of fabric that has one long end to it, which gives you the ability to take and make one long welt without any seams. Does that make sense? That is so important. You could be the best upholsterer in the world. If you have to seam a bench cushion 5-6 times around it, forget it. It looks terrible. So these little tips that we give, that you get, you may not want to know what a French settee, you may not have another French settee ever, but it's what you can apply. You can apply these lessons that you learn to almost any piece of furniture. I can guarantee you that. So check it out. If you're looking at this for the first time, subscribe to the YouTube in the very least. Subscribe to the YouTube. Look at the YouTube channel before you make any decision. If you want to buy anything, and don't. Hey, if you want to just be a fan of the YouTube, we love it. Be a fan.
You want to get to Facebook now?
No, we still, Patrick. I must be talking a lot.
I feel bad for everybody waiting for their stuff to get
I'm
shown.
sorry, mate. Do you want to go to the Facebook now and then switch back? No, we got to get through this. Randy says, good lesson. Jimmy needs a better pair of scissors. Yeah, I really felt bad at one point. Jimmy's scissors got really dull.
This goes to show you how much cutting he did.
So did his personality. No, I'm just kidding, Jimmy.
Oh my God.
It's no fun when he's not here.
I know. He'll be back. He's coming back in a couple weeks, right?
Oh, before I forget, Jimmy sent me a picture that I got to show you guys. You won't believe it.
Jimmy was so tired after his class, he had to go rest.
Jimmy took a vacation. He went to a coconut farm out in Hawaii, picking coconuts. But he sent me this picture that I want to show you guys. Look at this, you guys. This is so funny. Look at this chair that he sent me. Can you see that? Can you see it? Can you see the chair?
Oh, what the heck!
So I wrote to him. What I said was, what did I say? So see if you guys get what I said. Oh, brother, I can't find what I said. Wait a minute.
Oh, well.
I said, throne, Throne, from the nest. Get it? Throne from the nest. I got a kick out of my own puns. We're never going to get through. We'll be here till 8 o'clock tonight, Patrick.
These always take priority. Kevin says, is there a special way to fold the burlap while stapled on a job? Someone says we should be folding the edge facing you. So I'm trying to...
Who's that?
Kevin. The guy who was nice enough to donate to that.
There's a
Kevin Sims.
Are you never fold burlap down to make it look neat. Everyone wants to fold it under and staple it. But what you do, because you need to tighten it, with whatever you're using the burlap for, you're going over webbing or it has to be tight. There's no other reason for it. What you do, you can fold one side with it over, staple it, and then the other side you hold, you cut it 3 inches bigger than the opening, and you get enough to take the end of the burlap, opposite side, stretch it, staple it, then pull the flap up and staple it, the flap. But never under, like cambric. Don't put it on like cambric. It's different. It's a whole different procedure. So I hope that answers it. So Randy goes on, question, why did you go over the center rail with the webbing? It looked like it would have made more sense to go under it. I like the way you are dividing the lessons up. It makes good back to something much easier. I think, I can't remember completely, honestly, Randy. I can't give you an answer to that. I don't know. But sometimes you want to, I'm not sure. What does he say? Hold on. So I can't remember that. I'll have to look at the video. Okay, so how to upholster outside back of a tufted tub chair. Terry says, I need help with cutting the attached pillow back. Mine is not working. So Terry, I don't give individual lessons on that, but you do have a very difficult piece of furniture that has, she's talking about a semi-attached back.
We'll do anything similar on the channel?
We don't have, I don't like semi-attached backs. Oftentimes I tell my customer to make them loose. I always advise people to make if you have a semi-attached back, a customer or your own, and you're reupholstering, take them off, make them loose, because fact is you can reverse them. That's the advantage. You got a semi-attached, you can't reverse them, and then they start to crush down. Sometimes they put zippers on the bottom, sometimes they don't. If they do, it's kind of hard reaching in there to adjust. And you've seen my stuffing, how to stuff a cushion. It's kind of hard to reach your hand in there and to bring that stuffing back up. So I don't like them. So I don't do a lot of them. I know how to do them, but I don't like them. Janine says, great first episode. French settee again, Patrick. You got a real winner here, my friend. Janine says, so excited for this class to start. I'm so glad I'm a repeat yearly subscriber. The best value teaching style and tips techniques anywhere! Exclamation point. Yay, thank you. You're so welcome. Wow, thank you. Oh, that's not her saying that, Patrick. That's YouTube. Hey, did they get rid of the dislikes on YouTube?
Yeah, they didn't get rid of them, but you can't see them, which I don't like. I really don't like the change, and I don't know if I can even say that. I'm going to take this down.
Well, people could still make bad comments, right?
Yeah, but the dislikes help, because especially for people like us
Yeah.
and crafting channels, if you see a video that's tons of dislikes, that means they didn't teach it the right way. So what if you're following along, and you're following somebody who isn't doing it right, and you mess your whole project up?
Well, so far they're not showing heart surgery or brain surgery on there. So.
Yeah, but I mean, still, wouldn't that frustrate you?
But they are showing CPR. I'm not sure if they stopped this, but I this was a few years ago. Somebody told me that 8 out of the 10 CPR videos are done. They're wrong. Either they're outdated or they're wrong. So I'm not sure. They must have. I think they might have removed CPR videos from YouTube. What do you think, Patrick?
I don't know.
How to make double piping. It doesn't work on a walking foot. Yeah, you're right, Jim. It doesn't work on a walking foot. You have to get a special double welt foot for that, which I show you in that video. Janine says, on the Upholstery Show live 8 days ago, great question and answer today. I put separate comments as they came up. Hope that's okay. I heard it helps with the algorithm. Do you know what she's talking about, Patrick?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Janine.
Janine, thanks for being thoughtful, right? To help us out.
She's really considering it. That's nice.
And Janine also says, yes to live work on the question and answer. Always gets lots of tips. So I don't have any.
You're going to be doing that in I think January and February.
Right, coming up with
spring.
Yeah, I'll be doing that more. We did a panel, I think, on that, right? A hand panel, and you had the overhead view, Patrick.
I think so, but you're going to be doing that coming up. So with Jimmy, I think you guys are going to be doing.
Really excited about the live question. I actually get excited. I like the live question and answer. I think we get a lot done.
Yeah, you and Jimmy will be taking these over in a little bit for a little while.
Right, Jimmy. We haven't even asked Jimmy yet to do that. I'm giving him a little bit of a break.
I know he's to rest his hands.
Janine says about the Upholstery Show live. I restore antiques and any type of woodwork is completed in the garage outside. Any sewing and upholstery is completed in a room inside the house, wearing different clothes too. You're so right, the two just don't mix. Did you hear how smart she is?
Yeah, I think you were talking with Lucas about that, doing 2 different things in a shop or so. You're talking to somebody.
So you really have to be careful with your hands too. Like when I have to, sometimes I'll do a light touch-up. And light touch-up for me, I don't encourage refinishing. I encourage people with the antiques, especially, just an old English scratch cover. It's a very simple thing. I don't charge for it. It does make it look better. I know that it's not a long-term solution and all that, but it does make it look better. But when I do something like that, you really have to make sure that it's the end of the day and you're not touching anything else. I don't care how much you clean your hands. It tends to not work at all when you're going to a white velvet, which I had in the shop the other day. I'm really concerned that I'm so aware. Also, you guys, when you're upholstering, always check your hands back and forth like this to make sure you haven't cut yourself. Because the worst thing is to cut yourself, not know it, and then upholster a white sofa and then up. But you know what? If you catch it, you can neutralize it with cold water, just like that. I don't know if you guys realize that, but if you get blood on anything, as long as you catch it and still wet, take cold water, a napkin with a little cold water, doesn't have to be drenching cold water, comes right off, neutralizes it completely. Janine says the wing chair sounds good for online classes. They are harder. She finds wing chairs harder, and I would definitely think they're more work, and the wings can be a little tricky, and there's little tricks to a wing chair. Tricks that we would show you. We are going to do that next, right, Patrick? A wing chair.
Is Jimmy doing that next? I know you were trying to get Michaela to do one.
Well, somebody's going to do a wing chair because.
What's the one they found on the side of the road over there next door?
Who?
Was that a wing chair?
Who found something?
You and Jimmy went to go pick it up, and he has that, right?
I think he did that for that homeless lady.
No, that was something else. That was the last class. Not the shellback.
I wonder if Jimmy ever found that homeless lady he wanted to give that chair. That
was for the shellback. That's the next class coming up.
Oh, wait a minute. I forgot about that. Do people know about that?
Yeah, we talked. We featured it in the Q&A for a while when we were still doing it.
You guys know. When's that coming out, Patrick?
In the late spring, early
And
summer.
how many classes was that?
This settee goes until May. Can you believe it?
Oh my goodness! But I forgot all about the shell bag. Jimmy did a great
He
job
just
on the
finished.
shell
That's
back.
why he's taking a break from right now.
Right, he did a fabulous job on the shell back. You guys won't believe it when you see it.
I'm going to catch you up here. Daphne said, I think he went over the post to reduce friction. There's a center rail that the webbing went over, Karen says. Yes, the center rail. He went over it with webbing to reduce friction from the burlap. There we go. Thank you, guys. That's the one you needed to refresh.
Oh, great! Thank you guys for answering that.
Randy says there was a double piping foot for walking machines.
Oh, no kidding! Yeah,
And,
you definitely need it.
Randy said upcharge for white fabric.
Really,
There you
isn't
go.
it? Isn't it true? Because you have to clean your shop, you have to clean the surfaces of your sewing machine, your table, yourself. Like, look at Janine; she changes her clothing to do the sewing part of things. Isn't that great? But that's somebody that cares about their work. That will reflect in the work, and also give your clients your clients will appreciate how conscientious you are. And you know, we had a revamp of the shop that Patrick, I have to give Patrick and Michaela credit for. Patrick's a neat freak. I didn't know that about him. But
At least for that place.
But he
the
did
workshop
such
can be as dirty as possible.
he did a great job. He did a great job sterilizing the shop, and it looks like an operating room when you come in for the most part. I mean, we spent a lot of time cleaning, especially these days. You have to present yourself so differently. You know, people need to have the confidence that you're clean and that you're going to take care of their expensive fabric and their expensive furniture. You know, it's all good.
And I'll just keep going here.
What?
Denise Shepard, other Denise, different Denise.
Can
the webbing be stretched too much?
Yeah, you can, with the webbing stretcher, with the leverage involved. First of all, when you're stretching with the webbing stretcher, your baby finger, that amount of pressure on that can do an adequate job to stretch the webbing. Think about that. So yeah, you could take your whole hand, hold on to no matter who you are, no matter how strong you are, because it's leverage, you can push that down so much that you either break the reel on the front or pull the webbing away from your staple work or tack work, or pull half of a wood frame out. You can do that easy. So how do you tell how tight something is? Drum tight. This is another thing we talk about in some of the earlier videos we did, Patrick. And some of the points are kind of lost. For me, you know, again, they become mechanical, except when I got a guy like Jimmy in front of me and he's asking all these questions. I'm of the belief that there's never a dumb question, really never a dumb question. And, you know, I've learned to listen to people, ask the questions and respond in a nice way and not criticize any question at all, because every question has value. So it comes up with the online classes and then I repeat it. Drum tight, drum tight. Most people understand drum tight. Taut is another word that I use, a taut, but not overdone, overstretched. You don't want it to feel like a piece of plywood. And you hit it, nothing happens. And you can get it that tight. And then beyond that, you're going to break it.
Kevin asked, what are the principles of measurement from a 5-inch, 7-inch tufting job using a 2-inch foam? Principles of measurement, yeah.
Well, here's the who's this?
Kevin again.
Kevin, here's the problem with...
Very good question.
It is, but tufting was designed 150, 200 years ago to enhance blasé, plain fabrics, usually from overseas in this country, the old European mills, which could only produce like a horsehair fabric or a linen or a wool maybe, I don't know, but a very plain, solid, blasé, plain colors. So the upholsterers of that era, so you need to learn a little bit about history. From that era, their job was to enhance the fabric, and we did that with our buttoning, our tufting, our channeling, our shell back, if you want to call it that. All of these are brass tacks. All of these things to enhance the fabric, to make the piece beautiful. Like think Victorian furniture, think old Victorian furniture, and you'll know what I'm talking about. So all of a sudden, you know, as we go along and foam becomes available, manufacturers were the first to start using foam as tufting. It doesn't work. I'll be honest with you, it just doesn't work as well as horsehair. Horsehair was the original ingredient. Horsehair and muslin over the horsehair, and then a half layer of cotton sometimes over that, and then your tufting. That's it. And the reason that worked is because it was the right material to use. It was firm enough to make those pleats beautiful pleats. Okay, and we're going to show you when Michaela and I on the segment when we talk about the sample. We got some estimates
I
coming
don't
in.
think we get to that today.
Well, no, we need to get to it because there's a settee that's beautiful that I want to show people that we got a picture of that we may do, we may not, we don't know. But we gave an estimate. We may not get to this. I promise you guys that this is a box full of jobs that I didn't get, which I'm going to have to save that, Patrick.
I think you should do a YouTube video on that one.
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
Karen says, we joke in our shop that we care first about the fabric, then if the upholster is okay.
What, say that again, Patrick.
She cares more. She says, we first think about the fabric, and then if we're okay.
And
You're talking about getting cut.
oh, right, exactly.
Your arm could be hanging off, but as long as that fabric's okay.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
I think for deep tufting, it's the thickness of the foam times the number of holes buttons.
Yeah.
I mean, then add
Yeah, that answers Kevin's question.
Right.
But the logic of foam to be used as tufting, make sure you use it. I guess if you're gonna do that, make sure you use a high density and a good foam to do it, and ideally, a firm foam. Do not ever use it for ottomans or seats ever.
I think we should get to Lucas.
Well, we're still on. I got one more page here.
Right.
I got a couple of more. I'm sorry, you guys, if this is boring.
No, I just want to. I'm worried that they're waiting to get their stuff shown.
Class 1 French sofa, yes, can't wait, Janine says. Steven says, I'm watching late. I had cement poured today. Lots of work getting done over there this weekend. I'm not sure if the cement is for his upholstery job, which I would not. I would not advise that. I know he's just talking about something else. Karen says, last YouTube comment, you guys. This is the longest YouTube session we've ever had.
And she's actually works out a good way to end it because she's here now.
Good segue. It would be good if you showed a wing back in the future. We just talked about that. I've been working on upholstery just a year, and I've worked on multiple wingback chairs, and I still feel cursed in a way that there's always something that goes wrong or is super challenging with each one. Not that there isn't problem solving with other projects, but just the wingbacks stand out for me. And we are definitely going to do a wingback chair coming up, you guys, so stay tuned. Okay, now the Facebook. I love this because you know what I like about this? People helping people. And that I very rarely have to chime in on the comments that people are, on the back and forth, because I think that they're right on, spot on. So we're going to start with Pam, Patrick?
Let's start with the question. I don't have that one up. This is just a question.
There's one with just a question?
Yeah. A couple of questions.
That would be from Diana.
Yeah, start with that.
So Diana says, I have some questions on stuffing my antique settee. I've seen a lot of different techniques online, so I'm curious what approach I should take. I see Upholstery on Broadway Incorporated has posted a lot of new courses, and I was wondering if there was a recommended video to follow for stuffing with antique horsehair. Any recommendations are appreciated. I have a couple of specific questions. When laying down the first layer of burlap on the springs, I've sometimes seen people tie the burlap to the springs, and sometimes they don't. I'm curious why you would or would not tie the burlap to the springs. I'm going to answer that first. I don't think that's an important thing unless you have a burlap that squeaks. Some burlap squeaks, so you need to test that. Or if it's a soft spring. If it's a soft spring in the burlap, sometimes you get this little squeak. That's why we use squeakless burlap. That's usually the jute, J-U-T-E, that doesn't need the tying. I don't think in many cases you need to tie, especially if you're doing horsehair, because when you're tying the horsehair, you're actually tying all of the horsehair and the burlap to the spring. You just can't help but do that because your curved needle's going through it. You can't see it. Most of the times you're catching the top of the spring too. So unless it squeaks. If it squeaks, tying it down is probably a good idea. But like I said, some people use a thicker burlap that might squeak. Two, I haven't seen a consistent way of adding horsehair as a layer, and you haven't. If you could focus up on top here, Michaela, can you just look at your needles up here? The reason you probably haven't seen anybody do a second is because they might not have a big curved needle like I got up here. So why does Kevin have this huge curved needle? Because that's for my second, if I ever do it. I don't do it a lot, and I'll explain that in a minute. That is a 6-inch curved needle, which will do a second layer of horsehair, no problem. And sometimes, yes, there is a third layer of horsehair, and then you might have to use a straight needle for that. I haven't seen a consistent way of adding horsehair as a layer. So I'll just simply say, when you have horsehair, and you even if it comes to you new and picked, you still have to pick it. And you take your hand, you pick it, and you use one handful of it. You put on, you take your horsehair, pick it, and get a handful, and then put it on the piece, and then take another handful, put it on the piece, and then kind of like dough. You kind of mesh it, dough it together, and then and then develop rows and rows and rows and rows. And if you're good, and if you've done it right, it looks like you've just laid out a layer of horsehair. Sometimes I've seen people tuck it under loose stitches. I've seen that. I don't like that approach. I think that leaves gaps, so I don't do that in the burlap. Other times I've seen people place the horsehair loosely, which is what I do. Any advice on which approach to use and what? I like the loose approach, and then you stitch it. Then you stitch it down. Because what happens is, with my approach, like I said, you have it as one piece, and then you just I take my needle, and nothing fancy, and I just stitch back and forth with my tufting twine. I go back and forth, back and forth. It's just I wouldn't call it a back stitch, because you're coming in and out. You're trying to get as much of the horsehair tied as possible, so it's not a back stitch. It's just you're coming in and out, and you're leaving stitches about this long, depending on the needle. That big needle could leave a stitch this long. So, and then the second layer is the same thing. So the other thing I wanted to mention when I first read Diana's questions is it depends on what your budget is too. I mean, horsehair can be very expensive. I mean, if you're buying new horsehair, you'd see we have horsehair available, right, Patrick? Mm-hmm. It's very expensive.
Authentic horsehair.
How much is it for 15 pounds?
It's like $500, isn't it?
For 15 pounds.
I think, yeah.
So a 15-pound box is like this high, and it's like this wide, and it might do like a small chair, double stuffed seat, and maybe some leftover for the inside back or something. So for a sofa, you would need a few of those. And if you have an upholstered sofa, that you would need like 2 or 3 of these. So it can get expensive. So I think somebody followed up on this question and said they use rubberized horsehair. I think it might have been Daphne. Rubberized horsehair is over the springs, which is an excellent idea. So a lot of times I'm switching supplies. I'm switching battings from natural to modern supplies. And in this case, it's the rubberized horsehair that goes over the springs nicely, which over the burlap, over the 8-way tie. But it kind of is, it's a good base, and it's a good start to smoothing out the springs a little bit. And then a layer of horsehair over that. So these are good questions. Okay, now we're to Lucas, Patrick.
Yes.
Do you want me to read that one? So,
we got it up.
What's the hardest thing to do in upholstery sometimes? Sometimes the things that look the simplest. And Lucas, is he on now, Patrick?
He might not, because I think he would have commented. Maybe
he's from Denmark, right?
Belgium.
Belgium. So Lucas, I could tell, he is like you guys. You look at this. Excuse me for a second. He is like really advanced. I would call him advanced, and I'm so happy that he's part of the Facebook forum. But he is showing you, and he's so kind, because he's got 13, I think, in here, Pat.
Yeah, go on there if you want to see all of them. I couldn't fit them all, but
go on. Where should they go to see them?
Facebook forum.
Facebook forum. Lucas says the final result of the restoration of the GE 258 daybed design by Hans J. Wagner from Denmark in the 50s, reupholstered in Vadra Tonica 2. It's a wool fabric. Replaced everything top to bottom and restored the oak to the original waxed finish. Super happy with how it came out, and learned a ton from looking at the original factory upholstery. If anyone has any questions, drop a comment.
Look at that, it's a full size. I want to know where he took that picture, if that's...
What?
I mean, that's like a professional studio he's got there.
Well, he is.
Just some cool
I can tell you that.
something.
I could tell you that he is really good to end up with the result like that. It really is. Some of the simplest looking pieces are the hardest things to fix. You know. So the thing about mid-century furniture and Danish furniture is that you have wood, not so much on this piece, but you have wood fabric kind of disappearing into the wood, and it's almost, it looks like a mystery. How did they do that? That's the question. People, if they're not saying it, they're appreciating it somehow. But and it really is difficult to and we talk about transition lines a lot in traditional upholstery, but in a modern upholstery, in mid-century furniture, it's really even more spectacular. I get excited over transition lines, and this is one thing that Patrick, do you remember me saying transition lines? How many times did I say transition lines to Jimmy in that class?
Someone should count them up.
But how important it is. It's so important. When you look at Lucas's furniture, everybody goes, oh, isn't that lovely? But look at the front, look at the lines. He's got horizontal lines. Man, they're a nightmare, especially over something that big. So look at Lucas's lines, his horizontal lines. They're perfect. They're perfect. He did such a good job. I can't say enough about that. So let's go on to the next one. Pam has traditional furniture. Now this is interesting.
You just posted this.
Oh, this is going to be interesting. It's going to be related, I think, to some of the things we've been talking about. I have been posting progress and explaining the process as I refurbish pieces in my biz social media. It helps. Now, Pam is a professional, Patrick, right? She's. What is a professional upholsterer? The first time you take money to do a project, you're a professional, right, Patrick?
Yeah, so technically Jimmy has too.
Jimmy has taken money and he's been rewarded and people have accepted his work.
Yeah.
So he's a professional. Yeah. It helps educate customers about the value of my work. These French chairs are already sold, hoping to finish them tomorrow. So she's got. You notice, you guys. She's got horsehair spread out on the inside back of these, and I don't see, there must be stitch, although I don't see the stitch. She did such a good job in the stitching, I don't see it. But she's got handpicked, I could tell she handpicked the horsehair very nicely, and I think the backs, she's got the pitch on the bottom that has the muslin on it, Patrick, and then she's got the picture to the side with the muslin on after she's done the horsehair. Now, remember, you guys, if you've watched this for the first time, you don't want to take an online class, or you think you want to do this, never, ever, ever use, now you talk about what batting to use over the muslin. Never use a bonded dacron. Always use cotton. Why? Because the horsehair is going to come through bonded dacron because it is porous. I don't have a piece to show you, but hold it up to the light. You can see through it. I learned this the hard way. Don't do this yourself. Always, Pam, I know you know better. But you're going to use cotton over the muslin so that the little hairs over time don't work through and come right through the fabric. That's what can happen. And if you have a white fabric that you're using, you're going to have something that looks a little bit adolescent, if you know what I mean, over time. Right, Patrick? Does Patrick know what I mean by that? So really, you learn hey, the whole idea I'm here is to prevent you guys from making your big mistakes, right? Right? Save you a lot of money. If Pam decided she was going to use bonded dacron over a muslin, and then she upholstered it in a light colored fabric, in about 2 weeks to a month, her customer's going to be calling up and saying, "You need to come out. Something really crazy is happening to my chairs. It's growing hair. It looks like a chia pet." Does anybody know what a chia pet is? I know these two don't.
No, I do.
Yeah.
Chia.
That's one thing I do know.
And then you don't want. What'd you say, Michaela?
I remember that.
You don't want that in furniture. It's okay in a little, 70s gimmicky thing, but you don't want it in your furniture. So I got through that, you guys. That had to have been the longest.
It definitely was. See, I knew that was going to happen once that settee was.
Let's get to the favorite part that people like. The people have been saying they like this with Michaela and I doing some estimates. We want to show them. You want to show them that estimate, Michaela? The picture? I'll show the picture.
Yeah, a couple of pictures.
Which one was that now?
Daniel.
Which is, hold on a second. Daniel? Okay, so you guys are gonna love this. Now, I can guarantee you, we were talking about tufting and about what to use. When you look at the tufting, how small they are together, you look at that tufting, that's definitely a horsehair tufted back, no question about it. It's a Victorian era, probably 1860s. Beautiful piece of furniture, a lot of labor. But, so what did we say about that, Michaela? So you want to read it first about what the person is saying about their piece?
He says, I want to change my old sofa fabric cover. I would love to know how much you would estimate this work. Please see attached pictures of the sofa.
So it's funny when a customer references, if you're a customer and you're contacting your upholsterer, be careful when you call a sofa, this is a settee or at best a love seat. I would call it a settee. But when you say sofa, usually that's more money. So sofa is probably the most expensive thing we do. And then you have love seat, and then you have settee. So if you're a customer and you're asking a upholsterer, some aren't as honest as I am. But I mentioned this to Michaela. I said, oh, it's funny he should say sofa when he should say settee, or it almost sounds less expensive. Settee, less expensive, So we charged, what do we do? Do we talk about the pricing that we give, right?
Yeah, you said 2,100 labor.
Yeah.
And 7 yards of fabric.
So how did he figure $2,100? What, how come he makes so much? Well, I'm figuring that this piece is going to take me at least 25 to 30 hours. Let's say 30 hours. What's 30 times 80? 200. What's 30 times 80?
2,400.
So I said 2,100, right? So if I run into a problem, so I'm estimating, and I did this, I don't usually count my hours. If you guys are not sure yourselves, count your hours and then just figure out what you want per hour, what your shop time is depending on where you are. If you're on a storefront, you're paying high rent. Of course, it's going to be more, but then you're into other issues. But I'm figuring 25 to 30 hours on this piece, $80 an hour. I'm hoping that it's on the lower end, 25 hours, so that I don't go over, or 26 the most. Do
So, do you want to get into that? I'm sorry, Daphne. I looked at that. I thought it was from last week. I'm glad you said something. Because this was supposed to be the day after last week's Q&A.
So we could switch to.
Technically, she was the first one to post something, so sorry I missed that.
But we're all set with this one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hold on one second. Let's just jump onto this. What's this?
It's from. She posted that on Tuesday of last week after our last Q&A. That's why I missed it.
Oh, okay. So I took off the burlap and all the webbing, even the old, is in great shape. Springs are secure and twine is only broken in a couple of places. Okay. Updated question. Should I retie only the rows of springs that are broken or remove all twine and retie all of them? Well, let me just address, let me read on. This is the case of the chair probably would have been just fine if I left it as is and reupholstered it, but I want to make sure it stays secure. So, I look at that. Sometimes you could do what I call backup twines, backing up the broken twines and even going in between, which they already did. Actually, I hope Randy is looking at this picture on the bottom right. Take a look at that, Randy, because this is a whole different, I've never seen a tie like this before. So when you look at this, you guys, you might be seeing a repair job on this, Daphne. This could have been all repaired once. Okay, so what you're seeing is either this upholsterer had a technique which was doing a four-way tie and then doing a cross, an X. So essentially what you see is the middle spring has 8, the very middle spring has 8 ties, the corner springs have 6 ties, and all the rest of the springs, which there are 4, have 4 ties. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying, I think it's kind of funny or cool. I think But Randy, you had a good point. So Randy has taken four upholsterers tie their springs, and he devised a fifth way, which is his way, which is fine. I have no problem with this, the way it's done. So, but Daphne's asking, well, you can put backup twines on that, no problem. I mean, look how many twines there are. Sometimes when you're taking things off, I'm talking about the nails, you create more problems. And you know, it's not an unethical thing if you're estimating something and you think it's just reupholstered, and you bother to take it off. Let's say you've estimated, you bothered in good conscience to take it off to see what's going on, and then repaired that. You weren't getting paid for that. You were just getting paid for the reupholstery. That's fine. Sometimes when you get into a piece, I never call a client. I just do it. I mean, I just fix things. You might run into a problem, but you can make it up sometimes on other jobs that don't take as long as you thought. So does that make sense? So I think backup twines are fine on this. Original post was, this webbing looks like a repair over old cambric and old webbing. It's in good shape and the chair feels comfortable. If I strip it from above, is there any way I could salvage this webbing and retie the springs to it? You could do that too. So when you look at a piece of furniture, when you're judging, you know, when an upholsterer originally does something, he or she's looking for 100, believe it or not, 80 to 100 years out of your work. And this looks to me like it's about halfway through its life. So you can reason it that way, that they're going to get another half, maybe 40 years out of what I see there. And that's, you know, when you're looking at manufacturers today, they make things last 5 to 7 years, you guys. Yes, you heard me right. A new piece of furniture coming out of most all of manufactured furniture today, new manufactured furniture, you know, the glossy stuff, is going to last 5 to 7 years. That's ridiculous. But traditionally, we don't want that. Now, the other thing I want to mention on the old webbing, you see how they have that photo to the right top, and you can see the tack line that they've left open for your cambric. So that's a master upholsterer that did that. And so you want to keep it keep it. No, definitely. Again, you're using problem solving and you're using your own judgment. No, everything doesn't have to be stripped down completely. If I had to charge restoration costs for every piece of furniture that I would do, I wouldn't have much business. I have to save my customers some money, and sometimes just we offer them two pricing: reupholstering or restoration. So and that quote I just gave on that settee, that was a reupholstery. So let's go on to the next one on that. I hope that answered.
Well, I want to. There's a live question here.
Okay.
Elaine, hello from York, UK. Hello, UK. What is the traditional way of doing a chair base to support a loose feather cushion?
Chair
traditional.
Base. Well, first of all, loose feathered cushions present a problem for any type of seat that's sitting underneath a loose cushion. So you are going to wear through even an 8-way tie sprung seat. It's going to have half the life as it would if it was a foam cushion or a spring cushion. This is really bad, and the reason for that is when you sit on the French, we blame the French for this one, you guys, because they devise these usually French settee with these 100% down cushions, loose down cushions. And what happens is, you know, when you're on a 4-inch cushion, down cushion, you're actually on only about a 1 inch of that when you sit down on it. So what happens? You're really putting a lot of pressure on the springs, and you're moving around like this. Those springs get bad. They really lose this. They're supposed to be straight up. They lose that after a while. So I don't recommend unless I have to be sensitive about this. You can't have heavy people sitting on this. You know, it has to be the French design these pieces. They're very petite for very petite people. Believe me. So it really does body size really, you know, when you're talking about cushioning, any type of cushioning, you really have to have that conversation. I'll give you another example. I had a woman come in, she bought a brand new piece of furniture, high-end piece of furniture, sofa, and she couldn't, her feet didn't touch the ground. I mean, think Lily Tomlin. Who's Lily Tomlin, right? Patrick's saying, do you know who Lily Tomlin is, Patrick? No, he doesn't know. She was in Laughing, right? And they used to see her, she was this little girl sitting on this big, you know, adult chair, but her feet were out like this. So that's a problem when you're sitting talk about you're failing. You almost get seasick when you're sitting like that. You need to have your feet need to touch the floor, at least your toes. So she came in. The foam that they used, oh my goodness! And it's funny. This was a high-end manufacturer who probably is quite proud of the way they did these fillings. I mean, the foam, it looked good. It had a wrap, but it was not a 50-50 down wrap. I mean, they're very specific. It was a 25-75, which isn't as good, but it looked good. And it was over a very stiff piece of foam, and it was really well done. I mean, the stitching on it was really nice. And they were probably proud of these cushions, and probably don't know why she's complaining, and probably don't listen to the complaints. And that manufacturer didn't. So she buys an $8,000 sofa, and complains about the cushions, and they're not going to do anything for her. That's ridiculous customer service. I'm getting really a little impatient with a lot of people in customer service these days. Just to valve off a little bit.
She said it's an old French chair.
Her French chair is an old French chair. If she's going to use it in a sparing way, she should save the down cushion, do it the same way, 8-way tie her springs, and expect that it might not last as long as if she had a foam cushion in there. Okay, so that's it. I think I lost a little train of thought there, but that's fine. So what's the next one, Michaela? Do you want to go on the next one? People like this. That's why.
Well, Randy had a good idea a few comments back about this. I think we could make this a video every week, a separate YouTube video.
What?
Just answering these.
Well, I got a whole box full of jobs we didn't get, and I think, Randy...
We don't have any more, unanswered
That's
ones.
okay. So...
I think that's what we could do. We could even do separate live stream just for those.
The reason this box is important... You guys, are you kidding me? Let me just show you. Look at all of these. And this isn't all. This is just... this goes back 2019. This goes back to 17, but I have a whole other underneath this going back 2010.
I can't believe you still use paper.
Well, I like the fact that I use paper because I wouldn't have it if I didn't, right? I would have deleted all these and forgot about them. But the reason these are important is, why didn't we get these jobs? So for Randy, I think it's an invaluable tool that we're going to have coming up. But for example, I'll read the first one. I was noticing the very first one happens to be a recliner. I didn't get this because recliners are a nightmare, and I usually overprice them, and I'm kind of glad I don't get them. But this one was for $1,200 for a recliner, which is a lot of money. And most recliners, the Barca lounges, I think you can get them on sale for $5.99. So people aren't going to pay that unless they're the antique ones. We have antique recliners that we do that people do pay us, not quite as much as that, but so this was a discouragement estimate, I think. It was almost like I gave this estimate. The $1,200 was a real price. The labor that's involved in these things is a nightmare. Because I can tell you, almost every time you run into a problem, spring breaks, the mechanism fails, it's dropped, the handle breaks, you lose a screw from the handle. What do? Oh, crazy! It goes on and on. So I'm kind of glad I didn't get that one. But most of these do not fall in that category. It's people didn't do the work. And I want to just see what type of pieces they might have been and the pricing on it, so that, we always have to keep our eyes on inflation. We always have to keep our eyes on the economy and to figure things out. And this might be a good way to do it. So why don't we do a YouTube video on that, Patrick?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So any other questions or comments before we think we're way over our time.
Yeah, it was 2 hours, the longest Q&A I ever had.
I hope I didn't bore you guys. This is like a movie.
I think it's good. I mean, a lot of good engagement today. Thanks, guys, for all the comments.
I wonder why my voice is a little
lot of good stuff.
So the average Hollywood movie is 1 minute and 50, right? 1 hour and 50.
Yeah, now they're getting longer.
Right, unless Jimmy's in it, like he was in that movie, The Town. Is Jimmy on there watching?
No, I don't think so. He would have said something by now. All the stuff you've said about him. I'm sure he would have said something by now.
We always like to mention Jimmy's brief Hollywood career, right, Patrick? But anyhow.
Thanks, Randy. He said he's got to run. We got to run too. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody, and I hope I didn't bore you with too much. I think we went way over. Patrick's going to start editing these questions and answers, so we'll see you next time.
And we're going to be live next week, even though it is Christmas week. We'll be here Monday. So
good.
We'll see everyone next week.
All right, sounds good. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.